Hi guys, it's Erin with Blush Loop Studio, and today I am bringing you a pattern for a super easy, beginner-friendly beanie. This beanie is only made out of half double crochets in the back loop only, and it's super quick. It comes together in between 2 to 3 hours, depending on how fast you crochet, but because we're using chunky yarn, it goes really quick. For this beanie, I am using this Loops and Threads Charisma tweed yarn in the color white tweed, I believe. And my beanie's done. This is how much I have left of my second ball. Now granted, this is only 93 yards per ball. I got this at Michael's. I think it was like $4.99 for a ball. So a little under $10 to make this beanie. But this is what we're using. If you are going to sub something, you want to choose a 5 bulky weight yarn. And then I am also using a 6mm crochet hook. I bought this in a pack on Amazon. I use these every day. I'll link to the review video up here. This is a tapered hook, so I like that it doesn't have a super pointy edge, and it works really well with yarn that's kind of like this. That's this bulky, like wool kind of yarn. This is an acrylic yarn, which means it's going to stretch. So when we do our measurements, I want you to keep that in mind. You don't want to make it too big because over time it is going to stretch out. If you steam it, it's really going to stretch out. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, we have our yarn. We are going to make our slip knot to start off. So I made mine, and we're going to put it on our hook, and we are going to chain 40. So this is about the only counting you have to be able to do for this. So 5, 10, 11, 12, 37, 38, 39, 40. Okay, so here's our chain of 40. Quickly here, the way that this works is this is going to go around our head like that, okay? So we are working around the beanie, not from like bottom to top or top to bottom. It's working around. So this is primarily the only counting that you had to do. So you just need to make this now where it's going to fit around your head. Although reminder that acrylic yarn does stretch, so don't overdo it. So once you get close, like, if you have to pull a little bit, that's okay, okay? And the reason we made it this long is so that we can fold this first section up and have a little cuff. So if that makes sense. Okay, so if you're using a different yarn or a different hook size, we are going for about 12.5 inches in length. So if you just make enough stitches to make 12.5 inches in length, you should be good to go. Okay, so moving on to our first row, we are going to skip our first 2 stitches, and we're going to make a half double crochet in the 3rd chain from the hook. So we're just gonna go along. We yarn over, insert our hook, pull up a loop, yarn over. You'll have 3 on your hook, yarn over, and pull through. Again, yarn over, insert, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through all 3. So this is going to be our first row. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do half double crochets until we get to the end of this first row. Okay, so here we are at our last stitch, and we're going to make our last stitch. So this is what it looks like, nice and thick. So we're going to chain 2 to start our next round. So we chain 2, turn our work, and in this row we are going to be doing half double crochets, but only in the back loop. So we're going to insert from the top, looking down at our V-stitch here, and we're going to go directly in the middle. After you've yarned over, how about directly in the middle, pull up a loop and do a half double crochet. So we're going to do that again in the back loop only. So directly through the middle here, we're coming out, pulling through, doing a half double crochet. So this is going to give that ribbed effect, and pretty much the remainder of this pattern is to just do this exact thing until you get to the length that you need to wrap around your head. The nice thing is with this super chunky yarn, It does work up rather quickly, so it's not a million rows, just 500,000. So we're just going to keep going again through the back loop only. So you're coming through the top of that V-stitch and going into the loop that is furthest away from you. So we'll do this until the end of the row, and then I'll show you the next one. All right, so we are getting towards the end of our row here of our back loop only half double crochets. So this is my last stitch. And we're at the end of our row, and this is what it's looking like. So you can start to kind of see that ribbing effect where this row that we just made kind of sits behind this other one. So that's going to be the pattern for this entire beanie. So we're going to chain 2 and turn our work. And in this row, we're going to work in the back loop only, half double crochets. So looking from the top down, again, we're working in the back loop, so the loop furthest away from us. So it does change with every row. So before, you know, we were working, I guess, back here. And now it's always whichever loop is the furthest is away from you, not closest to your body. So for this one, again, we chain 2, make sure that we're going into that first stitch. Oops, how about yarn over first? Go into that first stitch, pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, pull through all 3. So every time you change rows, you will be working half double crochets into the back loop. So it's going to be the furthest loop away from you. You're going in through the top of that V stitch at the top and working only in the back loop. And that is what is going to give you that ribbed effect to your beanie. So we're starting to see this kind of take shape here. You can see the ribbing effect beginning to show up. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you continue to work this pattern, this back loop half double crochet for every row until this reaches around your head. So until it's long enough this way, however many rows that takes to wrap around your head, and then I'll meet you back here. Okay, so it's been about 2 hours, and this is as big as I am going to be making mine. So if we measure this, it's right at about 20.5 inches, which is pretty standard. This is stretched to fit my head, but because I'm using acrylic yarn, I'm likely going to steam this to make it softer, and every time you steam acrylic, it does grow. So this might end up almost being too big, but I wanted it to fit my head, so when I stretched it like this, it fits. So in total, I did about, I think I did 34 rows. So if we count it from this side, each of these raised areas are 2. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, and 34. So now what we're going to do is we are going to take our yarn, and I did end up using 1 and probably about 1/2 to 3/4 of a ball. So granted, these are only like 93 yards long, so they're not really long. I'm going to leave a very, very long tail here because we're going to sew up the sides and sew the top shut. So I'm just going to cut my yarn, and I left a lot, probably too much. I am notorious for doing that. And we're going to seal off this. So now we got to pull all this yarn through here. So this was just my last stitch, and now I am just literally pulling the tail end all the way through, and that seals it up nice. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold these over so that they match up at the corners, and we're going to get our darning needle. So I need to find one that is large and has a big threading hole on it. So probably that one will work. I think I mentioned this before. I always lick my yarn because it does flatten it out a little bit before I try to push it through here. Okay, so I got my needle through. And now what we're going to do is whichever way you want outside, you want to be stitching from you want it on the inside. So I'm going to choose that this is going to be my outside. So I want that to be inside the folded piece because I don't want this seam on the outside. So we'll be seaming the out along here, and then when we're done, we'll flip it. So we're going to take this, and we have our gigantic thread. You don't have to make yours as long as mine. I would say you need this length times 2 times 3. And that's probably plenty. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the back loop of this side, and then the corresponding front loop of the other side, and pull through. This is going to be a process. I probably should have shortened this. So now we're on this side over here. So now we're going to work from this side into this back loop over here. And then this back loop to what would be the front loop. From here to here, we go back loop, and then right there. Bring it all the way through. Don't make a knot of all your yarn, like me. And then front loop to the back loop. Pull through. Back loop to the front loop. And we are going to do this until we get all the way to this top edge, okay? So we're going to do this all the way until we reach this corner. And once we reach this corner, I'll meet you back here. Okay, I have reached nearly the end here. So, where'd my needle go? We're going to make our last couple stitches here. So we have the tail end. This is right where we started. So we're going to thread this in here. And then right here. I did end up cutting some of my yarn off. It was too much. Even I realized. Okay, so now we're on this. So we have this, right? We need to seal that up. So the way that you do this is we came out this side. So now what you're going to do is you're just going to kind of thread your yarn in and out. It doesn't have to be perfect. There's like no real rhyme or reason to where you're putting these. Just try to make them consistent and consistently like where they're at, so you don't want it coming way down under here, right? So we're trying to get it right along that edge kind of, and then consistently spaced. So we're just gonna start pulling through as we get little chunks together. So it's just back and forth. So I came out this side, so now I'm gonna go back in here and then back out and then back. I'm gonna go right here and then back out and then back in, back out. And it doesn't matter how many times you gotta like pull your thread through. I just like to get a portion of it done together where I can cinch this. Okay. I'm gonna keep doing that the entire way around. So we're just going to weave in and out of the top of this beanie cap here. Until we get back to the start point, okay? Okay, so we've made it back around, so we've gone all the way, and what we need to do is cinch it together. So I am going to come back out this other side though. I want my needle and my thread coming out this side because this is the wrong side. So we're gonna go here, here, and we'll just cinch until it's nice and tight. Okay, like this. Now this is where your freehand skills are gonna come in handy. So we're gonna take and we're just gonna kind of start stitching all this stuff underneath together. We don't want it to come apart and we don't want a big hole, but there's really no right way to do this. So we're just gonna freehand our way around. So whatever that looks like, I kind of like to go back and forth, but then I'm gonna go the other way too. So here, and so now I'm here, and you can see there's like this little gap. So I'm gonna try to get into, oh, sorry, you can't see. So there's this little gap. So I'm gonna try to close that up. So I'm gonna thread my needle and then maybe come back this way. Pull. So we're still seeing some gaps here. So we'll go here and then maybe over here. So pretty much what you're doing is you're just going to sew until you don't, wow, until you don't see those gaps anymore, till it kind of all seals up. And then do a few more just for safety's sake. You do not want your beanie popping and then just wearing a cylindrical thing on your head. So this does take some time, and it's not the most fun part of the project by any means, but it is necessary. And it makes everything nice and secure. So we're getting there to where I'm gonna feel pretty confident. I've got one more little space right here that I can kind of see a hole. So I'm just gonna thread through. I definitely had way too much, you guys. Way too much thread. And now it's like all stuck. All right, finishing touches here. Just going through. Okay. So here we are, we're completely sealed. So now I just want to kind of do some basic, it's very much similar, it's the same thing. So I'm just threading, but once I get to where I have this little loop, I'm just gonna create like a knot. So I'm gonna go bring this through with my tail that's way too long and knot it down. Now I'll go back through again, that same stitch, bring my tail through, go back through this loop to make a second knot right there. And that feels pretty secure. So now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm just going to cut it off. And then we're going to do the magic. We're going to flip it. I definitely did the wrong side. This is where I was trying it on. My makeup is on it. And then we roll. And there's our beanie. Let me show you what it looks like when it's on. Okay, so I kind of look bald because my hair's in a ponytail. But this is the completed beanie. Right now it is pretty tight, but because it's acrylic, even if I don't steam it, it is going to loosen up over time. So you can see that it's pretty snug to my head. Now, with this, I can unroll this as far as I want to make it shorter or taller, but it fits really nice. I'm getting makeup all the freak over it though, so it's gonna be filthy. But yeah, this is the beanie. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you make this beanie and you want to show it off, which you don't have to, but if you want to, tag me on Instagram at Blush Loop Studio. I'd love to see your work. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.